Journeys of Middle-earth was just announced from Fantasy Flight Games, and it's looking like we're going to get ourselves a Fantasy Flight Games Lord of the Rings Gloomhaven. Hello everyone and welcome back to the BattleCast. This video is going to be everything we know about the just announced Journeys of Middle-earth board game from Fantasy Flight Games. And this has me really excited for a number of reasons. It is combining so many mechanics that are fairly new in the board game world, and especially those used by Fantasy Flight Games. I really feel like a lot of the games that Fantasy Flight Games makes are quite good, but they often excel in one or two areas, and the others can be hit or miss depending on which game it is. One of the areas that they've had really a lot of success with is the app for Mansions of Madness. One of them that they had a lot of success with is the exploration and tile placement of the Fallout board game. And then, of course, another one are their miniatures, which I think they're really improving upon. And guess what? This game is taking all of those and putting it together, and it's got me very excited. So let's go through what we know so far. So this is your big boy. This is your Mansions of Madness. This is your Imperial Salt sized game from Fantasy Flight Games. It's 100 bones, and it's going to be a big old box, and it's going to pack a lot of content. Do I need to say more? Well, I will. So individual games in this Journeys of Middle-earth are going to consist of adventures, and they're all a part of this larger campaign called the Bones of Arnor. Now, what's interesting is that this game boasts some branching paths, some narrative decision discrepancies, and also that the game will adapt based on the decisions you've made or the outcomes or whatever through the adventures. So every campaign you play theoretically can be different, and this is very easily done because it's again run using an app, so it can remember those decisions, and theoretically it's possible probably to have multiple campaigns going quite easily because again you're using that app. This game really seems like you are getting to explore Middle-earth in a way that hasn't really been done yet in board games, maybe aside from the RPGs and whatever, where you kind of have a little more free reign. This seems like the board game version of huge exploration. It's talking about looming forests, it's talking about dwarven mines, it's talking about quiet clearings. I mean, you can explore Middle-earth, I think, in a way we haven't seen before. So the game looks like it takes place in 2 separate modes, and maybe even 3 if you think about it. So the first one is the journey map, and that's what we see here. And this looks very reminiscent of a Fallout board game style map. Just like in Mansions of Madness, I would assume, each game it's going to tell you to take a certain amount of numbered tiles and enemies and whatever and put them aside. And then you're going to start off with much of the map covered in fog of war. And then as you move along, you're going to tell the app where you're going, and it's going to tell you where to place things. So in that regard, I think the campaigns, the adventures seem to be roughly set, and how you go about them, I think, is going to vary for each playthrough. What's really cool about this game, though, is that there's also another type of map, and that is this battle map, and that's this micro scale battle. So imagine for a minute, you're playing on the Fallout board game map and you're moving along, and then you discover a really intense fight or something like that, or you've come to a boss fight as a culmination of your adventures. Well, now you go down to this small map where you're putting these big miniatures on, and it is like tight-knit combat. And that's a really cool take on this game, having the ability to be far out exploration and close and personal combat. So in this game, you have access to 6 heroes, and of course they are going to be, the classics that we've seen before, like Bilbo. And the heroes seem pretty interesting. Of course, they have unique characteristics to them. They're obviously not cookie cutter. They all have various strengths and various weaknesses, but it looks like there are 5 primary attributes. We have might, wisdom, agility, spirit, and wit. And it also appears like we have secondary attributes, and this looks similar to that of Mansions of Madness, where we had sanity and health, and it allows for a different strengths and weaknesses of your party, because the frail old man probably can't take a punch, but maybe his life experience has let him deal with more traumatizing things. So as we see here by the Bilbo card, Bilbo has low health but high fear, and that's thematically correct because hobbits are very resilient to temptation and fear. They're very brave. We've learned that this game consists around a skill deck for each hero, and while there are basic skills that are shared across all heroes, there are unique cards that are unique to each hero. There appears to be progression in this game in the form of adding more powerful cards to your deck and more powerful unique hero cards to your deck. We also have a confirmation that items will exist in this game and you can upgrade your heroes. Whether that's happening in the adventure or carrying through to other adventures is yet to be seen. So heroes are one way to make yourself unique. Obviously, picking Bilbo will be different than, say, picking Gandalf. But there's another thing that's very interesting, and that is the introduction of roles. Now, they seem like they're a bit of a subclass that's quite flexible. I guess before each adventure, you can choose your subclass, or rather your role. The two that they use as examples are Pathfinders and Hunters, and these appear to have an influence on which cards you can include in your deck. Now, what this means to me, for example, and this is kind of that third stage of the game I was talking about, is if you've ever played Gloomhaven, you may have come across an experience where you attempt a mission and you fail. And you're like, whoa, there's no way we could have prepared for that type of monster. We've never seen it before. This is crazy. Well, then you enter the third phase of gameplay, which is actually before you play. And that's where you sit down together and you change your decks around, or you change your items around, or you do whatever to better suit that mission. And so that's what seems like a possibility here, which is actually a fairly hardcore game mechanic, and one we've seen in Lord of the Rings: The Living Card Game. So that's really interesting. Fantasy Flight is using what I understand to be a new mechanic for them in combat, and that is no dice. In most Fantasy Flight games, gosh, I think are all dice. Mansions of Madness, Imperial Assault, I mean, they're all dice. So this one is using what seems to be reminiscent of the Gloomhaven style. And for those of you who aren't aware of what that is, basically you have a deck of cards that you start the game with, and every time you do an ability, you flip up cards, and what the cards say are what your ability does, how effective it is. Some of them can be abysmally shitty, and some of them can be outrageously powerful. And the progression in this game happens in the ability to refine and thin your deck to be as potent as possible, and where you get weakened is where your deck gets thickened with useless cards. So the combat in this game is, for example, Bilbo is faced with an agility check. Now Bilbo has an agility of 3, so he therefore draws the top 3 cards from his skill deck. And on these cards, in the top left corner, there's going to be success icons. And so based on the number of success icons you see on your cards, you may meet the check or not. And so this also means that certain characters will obviously be better at certain checks. Presumably if you have someone with like a might of 6 and you got to duke it out in a bar, drawing 6 cards, I mean, you're much more likely to succeed. And I also wonder if there's varying levels of success. For example, if you get 1 success, this happens, or if you get 4 or more, this happens. We'll see. So the game appears to be fully app controlled, which is kind of nice. I mean, definitely Mansions of Madness, my quality of life improved greatly when I got to use the app, because I was always the overlord and never got to be one of the adventurers. This game also boasts tons of minis, just like Mansions of Madness and Imperial Assault. We have 6 hero minis, which look great, and 25 monster minis, and we only see a couple here, but it looks like we're going to have trolls and urukai and goblins, and I would be surprised if there wasn't 1 or 2 very nice boss miniatures. So apparently if you pre-order this game, you get 5 play mats. I would assume that they're paper. I would be shocked if they come out as a mouse pad, but they might have them later. And this game's launching in the second quarter 2019, which is not far away. So I will be covering this game closely as it looks amazing. So stay tuned on the channel if you want some more updates. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. New videos come out every Friday or Saturday. If you enjoyed this video, consider giving it a like or even subscribing to the channel, or you can leave me a comment in the section below. Until next video, I'll see you then. Thanks.